I'm Mark, and this is the Mr. Productivity Podcast, the podcast to help solopreneurs banish overwhelm, reduce stress, and get more done. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking with Dave Buck, who has over 30 years of organizational and time management skills as an entrepreneur. He helps seasoned professionals 50 years and older find clarity around their career mindset, time management, retirement mindset, financial mindset, anticipated lifestyle, and personal activities so they can set up a meaningful and consequential lifestyle when career becomes less important. Now, before we dive into today's show, I want to invite you to sign up for the free 21-day productivity challenge. As a solopreneur, you've got a lot to do, and this challenge will help you be more productive at it. Invest just 1 minute a day in reading a tip that will transform your productivity habits in less than 1 month. To sign up, head on over to MrProductivity.com/challenge. Remember, Mr. is all spelled out M-I-S-T-E-R, MrProductivity.com/challenge, or just click the link in the show notes. Now, on with the show. Dave, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. It's an honor and a pleasure always to be invited. And yes, to be back. I think this is my third time now.
It is, but I think it's the first time you've been on the show when it was branded the Mr. Productivity Podcast. The first two times were when it was the Mark STRUCZEWSKI podcast.
You see, but you've always been known as Mr. Productivity to me, so maybe it's not that difficult of a transition for me.
That is true. That is very true. And my coach is the one that suggested I rebrand the podcast back in December, which makes a lot of sense. And when I look at my download numbers and they're going up, it's because people aren't searching for how to STRUCZEWSKI something. They're looking for productivity podcasts. So imagine that it works. So I just read your introduction, and we're going to talk about a very fascinating topic on the show today because you specialize in time management after retirement. And I'll be honest with you, Dave, before I became good friends with you, I did not think that this was an issue because I don't want to retire. You and I have talked about this before offline, but I don't want to retire. But a lot of people, they're like, okay, I retired. Oh, now what? And that's where you have crafted a really unique business. And what we're going to talk about on the show today about what do you do with your time after you retire? So why don't you kick us off and give us your overview thoughts on that?
Well, thanks, Mark, again. Thank you again for having me. And I think you bring up a really, really good point about simply this word and this term retirement. Because for many people, like you and I have talked, retirement for me is going to be very different than the traditional retirement, as I know it will be for you. So the first thing that I want to tell people to do is think of it more, not as retirement, but post-career. And that post-career doesn't mean that you have to stop working, but it's about bringing the maximum amount of flexibility you can in your life. It's basically, you may be as busy as ever. And as I tell people, I'm as busy as ever. My wife tells me, and I'll go with this. She says, you're basically semi-retired the way we work things. But I struggle with that term because it has the word retirement in it because I'm busier than ever. However, I control the busyness. I have more control over what I want to do in my life and how that works than I have had previously. And so that's what I tell people, solopreneurs, entrepreneurs who are like, gosh, I'm never going to want to retire. Wonderful. But do what you can to maximize the flexibility in your life so you're able to accomplish what you want to accomplish.
What's interesting is my father retired at age 55. My mom was 51, I think, at the time. Man, it seems like another lifetime ago. But they had a plan. So when they retired, they sold their house up in the suburb of Rochester, New York, in North Carolina, and they bought an RV, one of these fifth wheel ginormous RVs, and they traveled the country. Now, my father would not have called it post-career time management, but they had a plan. They wanted, while they were still young, they traveled around the country. And now as we're having this conversation, I look back on that. I'm like, wow, my parents were pretty smart.
Gosh, they were ahead of the curve, Mark. Good for them, because there is a study that has been done by the National Institutes of Health. And basically only, I want to say 17%, it's less than 20%, have any type of plan headed into retirement. Most start retirement, about 17%. I know it's less than 20% have a formal lifestyle plan heading into retirement or post-career. And so they go in at cold turkey. And the natural reaction of people is to say, well, I've got more time. I'll figure it out when I'm in retirement. And I'm going to tell you that's the wrong approach. You need to figure it out before you're in retirement, because otherwise you can get into retirement and you can get into a black hole really quickly from both how you feel mentally, physically, and even spiritually. And so having a plan beforehand helps you identify how to maximize what to do with all this extra time you're going to have.
A case in point, my mother, as you know, died of Alzheimer's in June of 22, and she was 78 at the time. So had they waited until they were 65, 70 years old, they would have had less time. So although they weren't doing the Dave Buck plan of post-career time management, the fact is we never know when our last moment is. We don't know if it's our last day, our last hour, our last minute, our last second. But we always assume, oh, I'll do that later. I'll figure it out later. And the problem is, what if later doesn't come? I mean, my father's 82 years old. He's now a widow. Is a widow or a widow? If you're a man, are you a widow or a widower?
Good question. I think it's a widower.
Okay,
But
I never get that straight. It doesn't really matter for what I'm about to say. But my dad is so busy. He's always tinkering around the house and working on projects. My dad is not a type of person that can just sit in the rocking chair or just watch TV all day. If you do that and you're happy, that's fine. But that's not what my father does. My father is very active for someone with his age, and he does have the physical issues you have as you get older. But he tries to stay busy because he says, hey, the older I get, I'm going to be able to do less and less.
Well, you just mapped out part of the strategy that I do here. I love it that your father is basically has embraced this and again is ahead of the curve, because one of the surprises that I try to work with people is to say, as they develop their post-career lifestyle strategy, I ask the question, once it gets developed and they start liking it and like couples get excited over what they're developing, I come back and say, why wait? What's keeping you from starting that now? Now, finances could be part of that, obviously, but still, is there elements of your plan that you have established now that you can start implementing now? Because you're right. We don't know. Today could be our last day. Tomorrow could be. And so dive into it now if you can, instead of waiting.
I love that question. Why wait? And when you ask people that, I'm sure you will attest to this. When you ask people that, they will come up with a plethora of excuses. Money. How do I do it? Fear. This is not what my family's always done. And I can tell you, dear listener, excuses will never get you to where you want to go, ever.
Totally agree. And it's funny how we've talked about your parents as examples to look at for us, ourselves. In my case, the examples I have are my two children. I have a millennial and a Gen Z, and they have both lived their lives and are living their lives extremely different than when I lived my life at their age. And I've looked at their lives. They're more flexible. They do things and plan for things that I would say, I got to wait till later because I've got to focus on work. They're both extremely productive young men, but they actually taught me to stop and think twice about why wait. If I want to pursue this particular thing, what's keeping me from doing that, instead of the traditional, well, I have to work. I have to do this. I have to do that. And so you can go, I would encourage anyone sees that horizon on the retirement horizon in view, is you can go look back to your children or your grandchildren and look forward to what your parents have as great examples to help you plan what you should and maybe shouldn't do.
I believe that flexibility can be a blessing and a curse. I see the flexibility as a curse when I go into retail outlets, whether it's a Walmart or something like that. And I had an opportunity, this a couple of years ago, I was talking to a manager and I'm like, man, there's so many people in these lines and there's no cashiers. And he goes, well, yeah, the kids these days, if something better comes along, not only won't they show up, they won't even call in. And I'm like, okay, that's the ultimate don't do way of flexibility. And I think I blame that a lot on technology, because when you and I were kids, we didn't have these cell phones. So you can text people about a party. You had to actually call everybody one at a time. So I think flexibility can be a blessing and a curse. Do you agree with that?
Yes. And that's where people like you, Mark, as a productivity expert, can really help solopreneurs understand the execution of their business and the right way to, what I like to say, optimize time versus manage time, because I feel manage is just, it's reactive, where optimize is proactive. You can maximize that flexibility now through great time management techniques. And then once you get that settled now, that helps you have the right mindset to adjust when you go post-career.
Okay, so we're 10 minutes into the episode, and I can't help but sensing someone is listening to this and going, okay, Dave, you're making a lot of sense. You got my wheels turning in my brain. What do I do now? I mean, I've never heard of post-career lifestyle strategies or time management. What do I do now? What would you tell that person?
So I coach my clients in 6 different categories that they focus. The first one is to look at your current career mindset. How important is your career to you? And a fundamental question to ask is, let's say your career was taken away from you today and you had the money to live without having to work. What would you do? So unpack the career mindset. If it's really, really important to you, then you've got to figure out, how do I have some type of career or occupation that brings me meaning and purpose in retirement? So that's the first one.
I just want to interject there real quick before you go to the second one. We are hearing a lot about artificial intelligence, ChatGPT, AI. And so you may not, dear listener, you may not get to retirement to answer that question. I think you should start thinking about the question now, as Dave just asked you, because what if AI takes away your job and you're only 35 years old? What are you going to do? We're trying to get you on this show to stop thinking about, oh, when I'm 70, when I'm 60. If you're 35 and listening to this show, or you're 40, you should start thinking about this now, because our world is changing so fast.
And if you do a robust planning or saving schedule, so your plan for retirement financially, and I tell everybody, start as early as possible, because my mom blessed me and said, my very first job bagging groceries, she said, save for the future, and that stuck with me, because you may find at 35, you can say, wow, maybe I don't have to work as hard as I need to at 45, and I have more flexibility. So again, that career mindset and understanding what it means to you is so important. And if it means a lot, that's fine. Just figure that out. Number 2 is along those same lines, and it's then to say, what's my retirement mindset? So what do I think about retirement? Because I have clients that the word retirement, when they first start with me, is a bad word. It's a dirty word. They don't want to hear that. And then I have others who are like, I can't wait till I quit and I leave my job. But then you start to challenge and say, what are you going to do? So a retirement mindset is having a positive approach to what post-career looks like. Again, how that fits your lifestyle, not any preset routines, but that you look at it positively. Number 3 is general time management. How do you manage your time now? Because the misnomer is, people say, oh, I'm going to go into retirement, I'll have more time to figure it out. If you don't manage your time well now, you're not going to manage it well in retirement. It's just a
100%.
given. And then if you manage your time well now, that doesn't mean you're going to do it well in retirement, because it's a different approach and philosophy. Think of it this way. When you go into retirement, if you're working a 40-hour-a-week job now and you go into retirement, you now have 33% more time, awake time, to do stuff. And Aristotle says nature abhors a vacuum. The same thing applies to your time. If you go into retirement without figuring out what you're going to do with that 33%, it becomes a black hole that sucks time away from you from doing productive things.
Are you one of the million Join over 1 million people, which may be a slight hyperbole, and get productivity tips that will help you live a more productive life. Head on over to MrProductivity.com/insider.
The fourth one that I have is your financial mindset. And that's not necessarily detailed. I'm not a financial planner. I don't want to manage your money, but it's your responsibility to make sure that your financial advisor, wealth manager, whatever means that you use, you have a clear understanding of what your life, that you have the financial means to live the post-career life that you like, that you believe it and it's realistic. So you can have a financial planner tell you, yeah, everything's all fine. But if they don't know the life you want to live in retirement, that may not be a true statement. So you owe it to bring your lifestyle plans, your aspirations to your financial planner to make sure that you're both on the same page. And then the fifth one is your anticipated lifestyle. What's the kind of life you want to live? Are you an extrovert, introvert? Are you active, not active? Healthy, unhealthy? You need to look at what that anticipated lifestyle is like and understand this, that when you head into post-career life, particularly if you have a robust career, your social environment, your social network is going to be cut in half. So you need to invest time in relationships that are important to you pre-retirement so that post-career you can rely on those people to nurture you and you to be there to nurture them. And then finally, the sixth one is, what are your planned activities? What are you going to want to do? And that to me is really important. It's what I spend a lot of time with my clients, is establishing a goal planning system. That can be used at any time in your life, but that goal planning system is a life purpose statement, a bucket list, annual plans, long-term plans, and short-term goals. Those grouped together, we then develop a comprehensive goal strategy that they can use well into post-career life.
Okay, so just a review for the listener, because I took notes. I always take notes when my guest is talking. Number one, what is your current career mindset? Number two, what's your retirement mindset? Number three, what is your general time management approach to life now? Number four, your financial mindset. I really like how you say when you go to a financial planner, take your lifestyle mindset and plans with you. That was a really key important part there. Number five, what is your anticipated lifestyle you want to live? And number six, what are your planned activities? And I think it's interesting. You used the word bucket list. I heard some people change to a more positive, because bucket list means kick the bucket. And
Correct.
A lot of people say life goals list, and it's more positive instead of a kick the bucket list. So it's the same thing. One's positive and one has sort of a negative connotation to it.
And in either case, however you term it, think outside the box with that. Think of the craziest things that you would want to do. If you want to be like William Shatner and ride a rocket into space on Jeff Bezos' thing, put that down there. Whatever it is, those should be aspirational goals that you would love to do that maybe not get to. So for example, one of my bucket list items is to hang glide. Each day I go by, physically, that might be a challenge to me, but that's something that I want to do. It's on my bucket list. Whether I get to it or not, that's fine, but it's an aspirational goal.
I was just going to ask you what's on your bucket list, and you jumped ahead, so you read my mind. I have always wanted to jump out of a plane with a parachute. Okay, skydiving. I don't want to jump out of a plane without a parachute, but I think the fear is what holds me back right now, even though I've read stories and seen YouTube videos and it's pretty safe. I mean, you have 2 parachutes now, but that's something I want to do because I hear I'm an adrenaline junkie and I love roller coasters and stuff like that. I hear when you jump out of a plane and you skydive, it is sort of like your hang gliding. You feel so free. It's just you and the atmosphere and of course gravity. And it's something I've always wanted to do. And I'm only 57. I'll be 58 in a couple weeks in June. And I'm really looking forward to jumping out of a plane. Have you ever thought about doing that?
I've had a couple of friends who've done that and loved it. Would be one of those. I would probably say, Mark, if I hang glide, then probably jumping out of an airplane would be next on the list. But for whatever reason, I've always wanted to just try hang gliding.
Yeah. Well, my thing is, I know you get two parachutes when you jump out of a plane, but that moment of fear, because it's supposed to happen automatically, and you got to go, okay, if this doesn't happen, I got to pull this. And there are people who've been jumping for years, for thousands of times, but it's that fear because you really got to trust that the systems are in place, that parachute's going to open. With hand gliding, at least you already got the piece of equipment. You're already hanging on to it. So at least you got that.
There you
when
go.
You're jumping out of a plane, if both parachutes don't open, you're goodbye.
Right. The ground comes very quickly.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to go back and talk about this number 5, the anticipated lifestyle you want to live, because I got to believe, let's go back to my mom and dad. When they retired early, they had a plan, get a fifth wheel. They've been to every every state in our country except for California. And they'd go and pull this ginormous RV, which is like a house on wheels. If you ever seen the RV, got the big pickup truck that tows it.
Yep.
And so they had somewhat of a plan. They wanted to go see all these different areas of our country. But I got to believe, you said that, I still can't get over that number, 17%. That people don't think that only 17% think about the future, which is sad because we're living longer and longer with each passing generation. Now, we'll never get to the age of Methuselah, who lived to 969 years old in the Bible, but we're living, I plan on living to 110, 111, 120. I plan on running a mile. As you know, I'm a daily runner on my 100th birthday. So because we have so much knowledge to get better care of ourselves, we're living longer, but you may not want to work past 65 or 70. And let's say you live to 100. What are you going to do with those 30 years?
And that's a great question that everyone should be asking themselves. So if you use the average lifespan today in the United States, men and women included, is right at about 78 years. However, if you live any type of healthy lifestyle, that can literally jump into the mid to late 80s very quickly. So that aspect of taking care of yourself can add that much time. So if you live, Mark, in your case, and I hope no one laughed when you said the 110, because I totally agree with you that our life expectancy is going to increase just between people being more aware of taking care of themselves with just the technology that's out there, the amazing things that's going to be available to us. If that's the case, you're going to spend well over 30% of your life in retirement or post-career, something where you have more flexibility than just having to work. What will that mean for your life, the things that you can do? And so that's where I just try to encourage my clients, think differently on flexibility versus a hard stop that says on my birthday at 65 years of age, I'm out of here. I'm dropping the mic. I'm going out the door, walking into the sunset while everyone cries that I'm leaving. Most people aren't going to get that. But then you got another 25 to 30% of your life to figure out. Why wouldn't you plan for that?
And I think as a solopreneur takes fairly good care of himself, I think that the key to that and the key to longevity, where you come in the post-career time management lifestyle, is getting back to the basics. Like I try to ground, bare feet on the ground as much as I can, being outside, running, eating better foods. So you don't have to get into the technology and all the supplements. Just go back to the basics. Like I say all the time, Jesus never took an Uber. He walked everywhere. And if you just start adding exercises and maybe drinking more water and maybe going outside if you have inflammation in your legs and just grounding, all you got to do is sit with your bare feet on the ground. That's it. It's pretty simple. If we just go back to the basics, then you're going to have a lot of time, because you want to have the problem. I'm using air quotes on an audio podcast. You want to have the problem of being so healthy that you have a lot of years to enjoy, instead of the other way where you're not in good health because you didn't take good care of yourself and now you're not going to live that long. I'd rather have the problem saying, okay, how am I going to fill these 30 or 40 years up?
And that is exactly right. And if you're a solopreneur in your 40s who is looking to, say, use your services, Mark, the idea is somebody like a Mark can help you with your productivity and time management now. And then that allows you to practice what a post-career life is going to be, because you've got this flexibility already built into what you want to do. And some people might say, you know what, if I figured this out, that I can run my business and have this flexibility in my life, why would I switch anything? Well, if that works, great. Work for as long as you can. What I try to tell people to say is, at some point, physically and unfortunately, maybe cognitively, the statistics will say life's going to slow down. Mm-hmm. And at that point, what are you going to do if you can't physically do the things that you want to do? And unfortunately, it could be cognitively. What's the plan B? What are you going to do then?
My mom's a prime example. I mean, no one thought she'd have Alzheimer's, and she got it. She was diagnosed back in, I think, 2018. And she just deteriorated over the years. So no one says, hey, at 78 or 72 or 69, I'm going to get Alzheimer's or some other form of dementia. So because you don't know what the future holds, you have to take care of yourself. So Dave, let me ask you this question. If you could go back and talk to your 15-year-old self, you could transport yourself back in time. What advice or suggestions or piece of wisdom would you give your 15-year-old self?
Oh, that's a great question. I would, to my 15-year-old self, if it was possible, I would say, look at my 2 adult children now and consider their path versus my path. I was very structured and you know, you and I being in the same age group, it was kind of, you graduated high school, you went to college, after college, you got a job. You usually poured your heart and soul into that job while you brought along a family, tried to raise a family. And to me, the priorities were all out of kilter. Mm-hmm. And so I think you have to do, to my 15-year-old self, I would say, as you go through life, try to be more flexible. Try to find moments and opportunities of spontaneity. And maybe listen to your wife when she said, how about we try this? And say, no, I wish I would have done a little bit more of that. Don't regret anything. And I would tell my 15-year-old self, I don't regret where I'm at today, because the choices and the decisions that I make made me who I am today. However, if you wanted a little bit different alternative and look at things, just learn to be more flexible.
Love it. All right, sir. Where can we go to find out more about you and what you're doing in the world? Because I know people are going to want to reach out to you because of the wealth of knowledge you shared with us. So how can they do that?
So thank you, Mark. And if you would like to, just go to Infinity Lifestyle Design. That's all one word, infinitylifestyledesign.com. And if you go on the front page, you'll see, if you want to get started, I offer what's called a retirement time analysis. That's a assessment that I ask each of my clients to take. And if you would like, if you take that assessment, and at the bottom where it says promo code, put in Mr. Productivity. If you do that, I will send you the full report back. It's a $39 value for free. So again, just go to Infinity Lifestyle Design. Just click to take the retirement time analysis. So when you take it, put Mr. Productivity in the promo code, and I'll get you a full report.
Well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate you being the first guest ever to make 3 appearances on the Mr. Productivity podcast. It's always a thrill to talk to you, Dave. Thank you again so much for being here.
What an honor, Mark. 3 times is a charm for me. This always goes by so fast. Really appreciate it.
Wait. We're not done yet. Before you leave this podcast episode, would you please do Dave and me a huge favor? Would you please smash that share icon on whatever podcast player you're listening to this episode on and share it with 2 or 3 of your friends. If you found value in this show, which you probably did because you listened all the way to the end, please share this episode episode so we can share this information with other people. Dave and I thank you so much. Don't forget to head on over to my website, MrProductivity.com. You can sign up for the free 21-day productivity challenge and find out everything you want to know about me. It's all at MrProductivity.com. Thank you so much for your time and attention for listening to this episode of the Mr. Productivity Podcast. Until I'm back with a brand new episode, stay productive and stay positive.